At this time, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Wallingford Inland Wetlands Watercourse Commission to order. The date is Wednesday, March 6, 2024. The time is 7 o'clock. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Carolyn?
Caroline Reynes.
Eileen McKean.
Nick Kern.
Jim Vitale?
Deborah Phillips.
Michael Caruso.
Jeffrey Necchio.
Jim Heilman.
Okay,
Erin O'Hare, Environmental Planner.
all right. We're going to, before I get into the text of the agenda, we're going to have a busy meeting tonight. We've got a lot of activities going on, and some of them we've never had before come before us, the type of activities before. So we're not going to be here all night. We're going to move along, and we're going to try and get as much done as we can. If you want to, and when your time is allowed to speak, if you're going to speak very loudly, clearly, with the mic, with your name and address for the record. This includes Aaron, too. Please, Aaron, stay focused on speaking loudly in the mic, please. So we'll go on to Pledge Allegiance, go on for consideration of minutes. Is there any comments regarding the minutes? Any corrections? Modifications? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of February 7th, 2024 be accepted as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? The voters tonight will be the regular members. Let's see, Nick, myself, Debbie, Mike, and Jeff. Right? Okay.
Do you have a vote yet?
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll call for a vote regarding the minutes. Nick?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yes. Unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll get on to the public hearing. This is application A24 1.1, 1136 Durham Road, Sunwood Development.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, before we start, I just wanted to say that the applicant did return his certificates of mailing, which he was required to do to notify the abutters about this public hearing. So the public hearing notice was posted on the town website on February 20th, and it was published in the Record Journal at two different times, on the 22nd once and on March 3rd, just for the record.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Bob Wiedenman. I'm the owner and president of Sunwood Development. With me here tonight is Christopher Giuliano on my left, who is our engineer and surveyor, and to my right is Tim Hollister with the firm Hinckley Allen as our attorney. Also not present tonight, but there's a report in your package, or should be, George Logan from REMA Ecological Services. He's a certified soil scientist, wetland scientist, a registered soil scientist, certified senior ecologist. So his report is in your package as well. With your permission, I'll just go through some housekeeping stuff to sort of get the records straightened out, although Aaron already started that with the public hearing notices, but if you don't mind, I'll just go through that. Once I get done with that portion of it, I'll have Christopher Giuliano talk a little bit about our wetland delineation and what our project's about, if that's okay. Before you is an application for a 13-lot residential subdivision. And we have plans submitted, which were dated 2/26/24. Those are revised to that date. We have a stormwater drainage report, which was revised through 2/26/24. A stormwater management and open space maintenance plan dated 2/26/24. Response from town engineer, from Christopher Giuliano, dated 2/26/24. And lastly, a report from George Logan, dated 2/28/24. So all that information should have been delivered to you folks through your office, through your planner, environmental planner's office. As far as the property, it was previously owned by George Meller. We do own the property now. It's located at the corner of Durham Road and Grebe Road. It's about 3.5 acres in size, lightly wooded parcel, previously used as a Christmas tree farm many years ago. It slopes gently from the rear or the west towards the east, towards Durham Road and Grebe Road. There are no wetlands on the property, and no wetlands in the proximity of the property. And we have verified that through multiple means, which Christopher will get into shortly. As I said, there's an old single-family house, a garage, and a barn on the property. Those will all be removed as part of the construction. And we'll be developing a short, about 400-foot-long public road ending in a cul-de-sac, and there'll be 13 building lots around the perimeter of that road. Each home will be serviced with municipal water and municipal sewer. The water service will be extended from the intersection of Killen Drive up to this property and then into our new road. That's the majority of what I need to talk about right now. I'm going to have Christopher just walk through the wetlands discussion and some of the stormwater details, and then we can follow back up with a little bit on George Logan's report, and hopefully finally talk about Aaron's comments that we just received today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Christopher, if that's okay with you, sir.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Christopher Giuliano, licensed land surveyor and professional engineer with the firm of Giuliano Associates. I maintain an office at 405 Main Street in the Yalesville section of town. With respect to wetlands on the property, we first went back to the old subdivision map that basically developed Killen, and I believe it's Fair Lawn behind. There were no wetlands depicted on that subdivision map. We then went to the Web Soil Survey, which is basically the state's inventory of wetland soils for various areas. And again, we found no wetland types for the property that would indicate that there were wetlands. After Bob came here initially last month, there was some discussion about just getting a soil scientist to confirm that information, and that's why we brought George Logan on board, so that he could actually do spade and auger testing throughout the property to confirm those results. They were confirmed, and there are no wetlands on this subject property. With respect to stormwater activities, I'm going to go up to the board and just quickly walk you through what we're doing.
Just a moment, Chris, but go ahead, Chris. Aaron, why don't you announce what triggered this application coming in before wetlands? Because you've talked about so much about being no wetlands on site.
Okay, this was going to be submitted to planning and zoning, so Mr. Wiedemann thought he better talk to me about it to make sure it didn't have to go to wetlands. He knew there was no wetlands, so he thought maybe it didn't have to go to wetlands. And then I brought to his attention that it trips one of our regulated activity provisions. That's section 2.1.z.2. We call it the surface area provision, because as Chris will get into, they're proposing to create something like 38,000 square feet, something in that neighborhood of surface area, so it would trip that. So then Mr. Wiedemann thought and he thought he could apply for administrative approval. And at the last meeting, I did an environmental planners report dated February 2nd, and I went through why this application wasn't a really good candidate for administrative approval. That was for something more simple like a shed or a garage that's not too far into the upland review area, that kind of thing. So then Mr. Wiedemann applied for
And that's
the
why
full
we're here.
application, And then soon after that, we got a petition from the neighborhood, people in the neighborhood petitioned, which is one of the three ways we can get a public hearing, is if at least 25 people over the age of 18 sign a petition, it trips a public hearing. And so that's why at the last meeting, February 7th, the chairman set a public hearing for tonight.
Okay. Very good. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, I have our site grading and drainage plan up because I think it's probably the most effective drawing to start with, just so you can kind of see where the proposed road is, where the 13 lots are, and where our stormwater management area is. So, get this. Try that one. There we go. So for orientation purposes, Durham Road is on the right side of the map, easterly side, and Durham Road runs in that direction, and the intersection with Grebe is right here, running kind of north and south. Our new roadway entrance for Kyle Court will be right here, and we have a 400-foot cul-de-sac and the 13 lots around, and our stormwater management area is right here. And Aaron is 100% correct. We do trip the threshold for impervious surface, which is, as you know, is 20,000 square feet. We're up around 36,000 square feet. But that regulation also states that the increase in impervious area may have an impact on wetlands. As we've indicated and has been confirmed, there are no wetlands on the property. There are actually even no wetlands on the other side of either Grebe Road or Durham Road. We've actually confirmed through both town mapping and state mapping that the closest wetland is actually a watercourse on the easterly side of I-91, 800 feet away from our property as the crow flies. So basically drainage will come out of our detention basin, enter the municipal stormwater system in Durham Road, flow down Durham Road, be discharged into the right-of-way for I-91. From there it enters a state swale, grass-lined swale, flows north, flows under I-91, and finally reaches a watercourse. So I still, while Aaron had mentioned the regulation and wanted to see, the commission wanted to see this as a full application, while we do trip the overall requirement for impervious surface increase, the question on whether or not we have an impact on that wetland and how far it is away is in question. But here we are. So we've designed this detention basin, and we did soil tests. We did 2 deep pest pits and 1 percolation test within the basin area. We actually did the percolation test down around 3 to 5 feet. We have that information on the plan, and the reason why I did it so deep is so that we were doing a percolation test at the proposed bottom of the basin. I wanted to make sure that results we got would mimic after this was built. We got a rate of about 6 inches per hour, which is decent, very decent actually. Our stormwater regulations only allow us to use a maximum of 5 inches per hour. All right. Through some of the review by the town engineer, there was a question over how the test was done. That's kind of immaterial because we've also analyzed this basin with a 0 infiltration rate. It works. It holds back the 100-year storm. We even went beyond that. It actually can contain the 1,000-year storm, which is 12.5 inches in a 24-hour period. So the basin's over-designed. It will not have an impact on the downstream wetland. I went a little bit further in my curiosity as an engineer. What kind of infiltration rates would we have to actually not only decrease peak volumes, which is what we measure, decrease peak discharges, but what would it take to decrease the peak volume off the property? And if we get 1.5 inches an hour, we'll actually be decreasing the amount of stormwater runoff that comes off this property, which is a positive thing. We'll be infiltrating it into the ground, recharging wetlands, wherever they may be, but we won't be actually putting more water into the stormwater system. In addition to this, as part of the applicant's meetings with town staff, we actually gave you a pretty robust sediment and erosion control plan. We actually broke it down into 3 phases. our initial phase where we're building the detention basin and a temporary sediment trap. The second phase when we go to build the road, and then the final phase where we're actually building the lots. And this way, you, as a commission, will see that our basin will be in place very early on. We'll be taking care, and this is the basin area again. We have our sediment trap that runs along basically the front of the property, not using the basin area. So all that will go in, all that will be stabilized, and then we'll move on to phase 2 for the construction of the road. So again, we have the basin in, and we start to put the road in. And we have our erosion control all in place. All this will be stabilized, and once the road is in, utilities are in, then Mr. Wiedemann will start constructing the individual lots. So each lot will be constructed. We'll have everything in place. We'll have our swale in place. We'll have our utilities in place. And it'll basically be buttoned up. In doing this, we ensure that we're able to control the stormwater from the very beginning of the project through the very end of the project. Okay? And then with respect to George's report, I got a chance to review it when he submitted it to us on the 28th. Basically backs up the initial, my understanding of the property and the surrounding area. He didn't contradict any of my design decisions or say that we were going to have an impact on a wetland. So it was kind of just a belt and suspenders to say that what we were doing was the right thing to do, and that we would not be having an impact on the downstream wetlands. If any of the commissioners have a question specific to me for the plans, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Chris, the existing house that's there, is that city water and sewer, or is that well water and septic?
It is currently on well and city sewer. I know from getting Erin's comments that she had mentioned something about a septic, but there are no records of a septic system. I'm not saying there isn't one. If there was, it would have been abandoned in place or abandoned and removed, according to Department of Public Health, when it was hooked up to the sewer. But it currently has city sewer.
And what do you do with the well? Is it capped, or?
The well will be abandoned again in accordance with Department of Public Health. It will, depending upon, I think it's up in this location behind the house, it'll probably end up being removed entirely and then filled with appropriate material.
The other question I had was, you said you're going to pump any excess water out into the storm sewers and bring it down along 91. Are the storm sewer sized for this type of project? Because just a few years ago, they were out there doing storm sizing, stormwater catch basins and piping was, I believe, to be sized up, not expecting this project to go through. Has anybody checked to make sure that the sizing can handle your volume of water coming off that lot?
Yes, that's part of my job, is to look at the downstream piping, and that's one of the benefits of actually having high infiltration rates. As I told you, presuming that even if we only get 1.5 inches per hour, we're going to be decreasing the amount of stormwater that comes off this property now, so the pipes will actually see less flow coming off the property in the future.
So then I won't have to drive down that road and see the catch basins bubbling with water?
No.
Okay, as long as it's on the record.
Debbie?
No questions.
Mike?
No questions.
Yes?
No questions.
Anybody else? Jim?
I think one of the things I'd like to address is the concern as to why our commission gets involved with an application like this, where indeed there's no wetlands on the site, and that's an important factor. We built this into our regulations because we want to know where the water's going to go and what changes will take place in the overall hydrologic environment having to do with wetlands. And one of the things that you can note easily on an application like this is all the housing around it. Where is the detention pond for all of that? I don't see it. It's probably not there because of the distribution. So what makes the application different is the compaction that has taken place, the number of homes in the given unit. It requires that there be a detention basin to control that concentration. Clearly understood. Our concern as a commission, where's that going to go and what effect would it have? What's so important to us is to get the assurance that what's being done is there to protect the wetlands. So, number one, there are no wetlands on the property, very important. Where it's going is important. What I would like to address is, when was the inspection holes made for the percolation testing?
We did those at the end of November, so it was quite wet at that time.
Beautiful. One of the concerns that I would have when you look at the REMA report is the fact that it states that the saturated hydraulic conductivity is often constantly high. That's a characteristic of the soil. We used to call it percolation rates as well as porosity of the sediments, the soils, the bedrock, you name it. Porosity allows the amount of water and the rate of flows is what it can handle. The terminology is different, but the results are the same concerns. So the concern that I came up with is, okay, what if those basins are receiving water from groundwater? You just addressed that. That's not going to be a concern. This was done at one of the most high water table conditions we've experienced. Similar to this, on Barnes Road, we're looking at an application where they built a detention pond, and guess what? It hit an artesian spring. It's not doing any good at all as a detention pond. In fact, it ends up working in reverse. So the evidence that we've gathered here tonight, I think, is very important to our Wetland Commission in the fact that we do have very, very porous soils here. They convey water extremely well. You look across the whole terrain of where you folks live, and you will see a lot of wetland perched pockets like around Rock Hill School. It's characteristic of those zones. What's fortunate here is the high porosity of the soils allow the conveyance of water across just below what they are describing here is bedrock. That occurs everywhere you have bedrock. So again, I am happy to find out that the wetland concerns for this area, number one, there's no wetlands there. Number two, it's going to an area quite remote from here, which through engineering is telling me that it can handle what they're doing here, in addition to the fact that at this time of year, they do not see these basins filling with water, which means that you can suspend the water and actually alleviate problems to where it's going to go. And that is the concerns of this commission. Where's it going off the property? So in that, I'm happy we have these in our regulations, because now I'm more comfortable with what is happening to wetlands. The other issues are not a concern to me as a wetland commissioner. They certainly would otherwise. But as far as wetlands go, I get it, I understand it, and that's all I have to say at this point.
Ally? Caroline? Okay. The concern I have, or the question I have, is you've got a natural flow from the lots west of your project coming onto your property. Is that correct?
Yes, from Fairlawn Drive, some of this flow does come off the back of these properties on, because they are higher, yes.
Okay, are those flows going to be into your retention pond? And how do they get in there?
The way we analyze, or I should say, the way I analyze storm drainage, I take a very conservative approach on it. I analyze the property and what I'm doing to the property. And why I do it this way is because what's happening off-site will continue to happen no matter what I do. So if I were to take in from Fairlawn Drive all the way down to Durham Road, my percentage of impact would be less because I have a bigger area. Okay? So by just saying that what I'm concerned with stops at the property line, I now have to take care of 100% of what I'm doing. So therefore, I've designed to what this is going to handle. Existing is going to come through and continue to go through.
Okay, that's great, but that continue to go through, is it going to come onto this property and sit? Or is it going to come onto this property and get into the retention system?
It's going to flow across, be intercepted by the road or our swale and get into this detention basin.
So the swale will allow the water to get into the retention system.
The roadway, as anything comes off and gets to this roadway, it's intercepted, ends up in our drainage, coming down sort of the back of these, through these lots, the swale will pick it up and get it into the detention basin as well, yes.
Next.
I'm all set.
That's it?
I have just a couple of quick comments, if I could. First, Mr. Heilman's questions about the water and rainfall. We actually had a report that Christopher was able to do for us, and this is from the National Weather Service. And it looks at the precipitation data for monthly and annually for the last couple of years. And just to give you a couple ideas, and they go by county, so it's not specific to Wallingford or the site, but it gives you an idea of just what kind of rainfall. We all know how rainy it's been definitely the last year, if not longer. But just the last 3 months of 2023 were 125% of normal. The 6-month total, again, New Haven County, 167% of total. And the 1-year totals, and this is through December 23, was 130% of total. So the fact is, we were looking at this in very wet conditions. So if anything, a normal year would see significant less water, groundwater, than we're seeing today. We saw no groundwater in our test holes. So that was a good point for Christopher on his design standpoint. In the George Logan report, there are just a couple of minor things I shouldn't say minor, but I just want to point out a couple of things that he included in it. One is that we have designed to what is required now, which is the Connecticut Deep's 2002 guidelines for erosion and sedimentation control. He also looked at it, as you probably are aware, as of March 31st, I believe, of this year. The guidelines are going to be updated to the 2023 standards. So I asked him to evaluate those to make sure that we also meet what will be required in just a few weeks, and obviously we'll be building during that time frame. And he did confirm that we also meet those standards. So I think that was just an important thing to mention. And lastly, in the very end of his report, he does state that this will not adversely affect both during the construction or the long-term well-being of the wetlands and watercourses. That was, a professional who I'm sure you folks are aware of. I'm sure he spoke before you on other applications, very well-respected environmental scientist. So I just wanted to get those in the record to make sure that we've covered all the points. That's all we have, other than if you'd like us to address Aaron's comments, which
Well, I think there's so many of them, I think you've got to address them with her at another time. For us to go through 2 pages or 3 pages of comments, that's not what we're here to do tonight.
I understand that. I would agree with you. I guess I would just summarize with the fact that she did find some technical typos and miscellaneous things like that need to be tweaked on the plans, which we certainly would not be objectionable to correct to her satisfaction. Many of the other comments really have nothing to do with wetlands, and I guess she's just pointing them out so we can get them corrected before we go to planning and zoning or for some other purpose, but I don't think majority of them really have any impact on our wetland application. But as I did a quick read, I didn't receive these until 5 minutes to 5 tonight, so I apologize for not being prepared or having created a response to this as of yet.
Well, I think she indicated that you got her the documentation last Friday.
It was about noontime on Thursday.
Well, that's where the problem starts. That should have been a week earlier. So you can apologize for getting him tonight, but you should apologize for bringing him in on Thursday before the meeting. That's really where the frustration comes in.
I can appreciate that, although that is her self-imposed deadline. She told me Friday morning, have plans here for us so I can distribute them to the commission. If she had told me I need them by Monday to comment, we probably would have made arrangements to get them there sooner, but that's in hindsight.
Well, at this time, I'm going to invite the public to come as a public hearing. You must name and address for the record, but it's specifically wetlands issues. If it's not wetlands issues, I'll ask you to stop. Yes, sir.
Hello, good evening. My name is John Wooding. I'm 1131 Durham Road. First of all, I want to congratulate Giuliano Associates for being able to cram 13 houses in a 3.5-acre lot. I appreciate what you all do. I don't know if you get paid for this, you should. But if you're volunteer, then thank you for your volunteer service. I know that this is all moving very, very quickly, specifically because of the 830G is being able to, it's a way to be able to get something done quickly without going through a lot of the normal process. And I'm not going to talk about some of the issues with the land, like you said, that have nothing to do with wetlands, the safety and the fire department's concerns and all of those other things. But I will address that that I do believe that this is a wetlands issue. Now, you all know 100 times more than I know about wetlands. I just pulled it up on my Google, and it says a wetland is a place in which the land is covered by water, salt, fresh, or somewhere in between.
Please speak into the microphone, please.
Okay, sorry. A wetland is a place in which the land is covered by water, salt, fresh, or somewhere in between, either seasonally or permanently. And if any of you had had the opportunity to walk this piece of property, you would probably be redefining the property as wetlands, maybe, I don't know. But we are concerned about the impact of, putting in a road with 13 foundations, driveways with somewhere between 25 and 40 or 50 cars. I understand that there's been some design with the runoff going into this basin, which goes into the stormwater drainage, which eventually leads to where the wetlands are or whatever. But I do believe that this ultimately has an impact on those wetlands, wherever they might be. You're talking about lawnmowers and just all sorts of equipment. There's a lot of stuff that this brings to a very small piece of property, which I believe does impact it and should be a concern of the Inland Wetland Commission. I know that the watershed, I believe, does not technically fall under you, but I know that this certainly will have an impact on the watershed, which I would assume has an impact on the wetlands in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not. I have neighbors that could talk about the the properties, those neighbors that are next to it. I do want to mention one other thing which was brought up by the town engineer, and I don't know if it's something for you to be concerned about, or planning and zoning, or both of you, but this basin, I think, Mr. Hellman, you were referring to it, some of you were referring to it. This basin is something that is supposedly going to be taken care of by an HOA. That's great if the HOA is active and they're doing their job, but in the engineer's report, it also said, the question which Mr. Wiedemann answered, or Mr. Giuliano answered, was what happens if the HOA is discontinued? And the answer to that was, well, it would be up to the private homeowners. What homeowner is going to take care of the catch basin in the backyard that's shared by 13 other houses? It doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of holes in this plan for 13 houses, and I hope you consider that. Thank you.
Good evening, Tom Kappas, 4 Killen Road, Wallingford. So my property abuts this property on the north side of the proposal, and I've been in my house 19 years, and one of the things that I need clarity on, just because what Mr. Giuliano just said about, he's really confident that there's not going to be any issues with retainment of water or pooling of water every day for 19 years. And, and I would argue this is more of a trend the last couple of years with the amount of rainfall that we have. And, I go in my backyard with boots right now, and I'm, literally touching this property. So my understanding, there's an easement across my backyard coming from the west to the east, which is, basically sloping to Grebe Road. So it really mirrors this parcel that the proposal's going on. And I have significant water issues in my backyard now, so I just, really for the record, if we're putting 13 lots on this, increasing impervious surface is going to have a really negative impact. I would think, logically, I'm a novice in this, but it's not going to make it better. It's only going to make it worse. And I think, my concern is the quantity of the homes and the increased foundations to really, there's really nowhere to disperse this water. And I'm hearing this catch basin's going to do that. But I still haven't heard how we're going to get the water, to disperse to that catch basin. So I really haven't heard anything tonight that makes me feel good as a property owner and a taxpayer in Wallingford that this proposal is going to take care of that for me. Thank you.
I'll only make the comment that I would hope that swale that he made reference to along the southern boundary line would be designed to be able to accept that water coming off of Killen Drive.
Yep.
And heading in that way.
Yeah, and just if I can to that, my understanding that there's a swale with an easement in my backyard.
What's the easement? Excuse me. What's the easement?
So from my understanding, and again, I'm a novice in this, but the slope of the property is from Fairlawn all the way to Grebe Road. So my road runs perpendicular to Fairlawn. That we're guiding the water or dispersing the water because of the elevation to this catch basin that's on the Wallingford Land Trust property on the corner of Grebe and Killen. And I've never seen water in my 19 years as a property owner in that basin. And I'm probably using the improper terminology, but I understand it as a catch basin, similar to what Mr. Giuliano just discussed. And water just pools in my backyard. So again, I'm using my little kids are out there with boots. I'm in boots, and now we're proposing 13 lots on a 3.5-acre parcel in a wooded area, and that's greatly going to disrupt the look and feel of the neighborhood, as well as increase my challenges with water in my backyard. Thank you.
Could you repeat your address?
Sure, it's 4 Killen Road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? I'm Jeff Rajunas, 1125 Durham Road. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of Connecticut, and I'm not an expert in civil matters. I'm a mechanical engineer, but I have a pretty good knowledge of water flow. I have a degree in engineering from aeronautical engineering out of Penn State. I've been in the house my wife and I have been in the house for about 28 years. When we were there just prior to the Fairlawn subdivision going in, and we noticed in a very short period of time a couple of factors, and these are anecdotal, they're not engineering based, okay? First factor is we started taking water in our basement once Fairlawn went in, okay? And we don't have any explanation for that, but that's an anecdotal observation. Second thing is our well was corrupt. After Fairlawn, there was some blasting or something that went in during the construction of that subdivision, and our well was contaminated, and we had to go through a great deal of hardship to correct that problem. Okay. A couple other factors to consider. I firmly disagree with the engineer's assumption about not affecting periphery properties. Okay, I think that is a very liberal assumption, not a very conservative one. We put an addition in, a pretty significant addition on our house a number of years back. When we dug the property, we got down about 8 feet, and then we hit red rock, okay? Impervious red rock. We had to bring in special equipment to break up that rock, okay? My understanding is this area is predominant to have that kind of geology formation. So when we talk about water runoff coming off of Fairlawn, which is at a higher elevation than Durham Road, okay, some of it's going to run off toward Grebe Road, and it's going to be managed through whatever catch basins. They're going to try to catch the water as it flows toward this 13-unit subdivision. But what about the water that backs up and then starts to find another place to go? Okay, that's what's going to affect us. We're the houses around this subdivision, that's what's going to impact us. That water's going to back up as it tries to find its way into these percolation units or whatever they are, and then it's going to find another place to go. That's what water does. It always finds another way to go. It's going to come through my neighbor's property. It's going to hit that red rock, and it's going to run right under, and then it's going to end up in my basement. And I can tell you, it's there. It's there already from that previous subdivision. This is only going to make it worse because you're essentially creating a stone wall in this corner, and I'm directly diagonal to this unit, to this subdivision. So I'd like to be on the record as saying that I firmly disagree with the assumptions this engineer is making. Again, I'm not certified in this type of engineering, but I certainly know a little bit about the way water moves and the way fluids behave. Thank you for hearing us tonight.
Kathy Rajunas, 1125 Durham Road. I have a question if someone could find out for me. We have trucks constantly when there's rain that come to our cul-de-sac on Tom's Drive, we're on the corner, and are dumping water that is backed up from somewhere in the neighborhood. And this happens every rainstorm all night long. So this water that's going to magically go to this pit is going to be, like my husband said, in our basement because it can't escape somewhere else, that they have to pump it in and drain it into our drains to make it go into the town, I'm assuming. I don't know anything about it, but our basement is a jacuzzi.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Dean Toscano, 1128 Durham Road. My property abuts the southwestern part of this subdivision. And I can tell you that the land is wet. I have pictures, I have it on my phone. Any of you are welcome to walk my property during this time and take a peek at the water that is on this property. Years ago, I've been out there for 32 years. My dog went onto that property. I went in there, I sunk up to my knees on this property. I lost my shoe. Right now, to this day, where they want to put this retention catch basin, it's not perking water. You could drive up there right now, that water is 6 inches deep. It's going nowhere. It just sits, goes across my driveway. The water in the back comes down because I'm lower, goes down my driveway, ice in the winter. I can't stop. It's blowing out my retention wall. It's all from that property, Fair Lawn, Killen Road. It all comes down. So I don't know. You be free to go to my property and take a peek at it. You know, my basement's wet. It's out there right now. I got pictures on my phone after the meeting. If you'd like to look at it, I can show you. So that's my opinion. I oppose it.
Anyone else? If you're going to be more people, if you'd move down in front so we could keep the line moving, I'd appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Brian Delaney. I live at 1191 Durham Road, which is on the other side of 91. Bought my house 25 years ago, and the water has gotten nothing but worse. So you're talking about dumping the water basically on 91's property, it's the state property. Well, all that water drains to Spring Lake, which is now filled with silt from Bristol Myers, along with Muddy River, which is also filled with silt, which is coming right down onto my property. And right now, every time it rains, I live in a castle. My whole house is surrounded by water. This has been going on for the last 12, 13 years. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now, Aaron's report that you received tonight, 5 o'clock, indicates that this should be tabled till next month. So these things are reviewed. Aaron, do you change your mind on that at all?
No, I feel
You
it's-
think this should be tabled so you can straighten out all your concerns?
we want the materials on file to be correct, yes. I think that is important.
Okay? Does anybody have an issue with that?
I have, if you want to save it
No,
to
I
next.
I don't want to see any pictures. If you got page and a half of things you got to be concerned about, I'm asking you that you recommend this to be tabled.
Yes.
Okay? I'll entertain a motion to table it. Okay, go ahead, Nick.
There's two things. The elevation of the foundations you're going to pour, are they level with the ground contours that are out there now, or are you going to raise them up? The other thing is, where's the excess material going to go when you dig the foundations out? Is it going to be put on site, or is it going to be removed from site? So those are two key things here that I think that the audience is listening for, because if they have problems with water, you're going to have problems with water if you're going to stay at if your foundation is going to be sitting in the ground level that's out there now. If you're going to raise them up, then great. You don't care about them. All you care about is keeping the water out of your foundation. So I would like to know where the elevations of foundations are going to be, and also where the excess material on this site's going to be. And are you going to change the swale that comes off from the west to the east, where the water now tends to drift over towards this property, or is there any way you're going to shut this off and have the water go somewhere else? Those are the three things I'm concerned with.
Okay. With respect to the swale that the gentleman talked about who's on Killen, that is on the Killen properties, and it comes from Fair Lawn down there. We are not touching that swale whatsoever because it's not on our property. I've already provided computations and information to the town engineer that proves that we are going to have less peak discharge going to the north and less volume to the north. So any water that currently flows from our property to the north, and there is a slight bit, we're going to decrease that with the plan. So we will not exacerbate the issue that they are seeing. We're not creating it, but we're definitely not going to exacerbate it. We're actually going to pull water away from the northern properties. The second thing is you asked about material. This is a balanced job. Bob and I went through a number of iterations, basin design, elevations of road, to balance the site out so he did not have to take material off-site or bring material on-site. The foundation elevations vary by lot. For next month, I will get you, because I already have finished floors, I have driveway slabs, I will get you bottom of footing elevations as well, and put that on the plan so you have it. I don't want to misspeak. Some are raised, some are not. We fit everything in there to keep the driveways at a reasonable slope on this for these lots. But I'll get you the exact numbers and make sure they're on the plan for next month.
Now that you heard testimony from the audience tonight about there is a problem out there with the foundations, are you still going to attempt to create this 13-lot subdivision and have water in your foundations?
Well, we dug down the 2 test pits where we are at the lowest part of the property, and we did not hit water at the end of November of last year.
Stop. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, as I said, we did those deep test pits. We didn't hit water at that time. Was very wet out at that time, just like it is now. There's no question. I'm not surprised that some of these people have water in their basements. I mean, we had Killen Road going, we had Fair Lawn. Were they taking, back in the 90s, were they taking care of the water the way we have to now? Probably not. But we're not, everything we're doing, everything I'm doing, Allison, the town engineer, has reviewed. She wanted me to look at my discharge points going off to various parts of the property to make sure that my peak discharges and my volumes were less to these people's properties. And we do that. We meet that. Regarding the elevations and foundations, I will get you that information, Mr. Kern.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment? Mr. Giuliano, Chris, one thing germane here is the fact that the Natural Resources Conservation Service mapping, and your report agreed with it in your stormwater report, says that the predominant soil on this site is the Cheshire, which is where your basin's going. But in the back and on the southern tip, it's Watchhog. and watchog soil has a high seasonal water table. But that's not the predominant area that you're going to be utilizing. But that would explain some of these comments we've heard tonight. It's a different soil type, perhaps. Perhaps what they're talking about is the watchog soil that sort of rims your site.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion to table. Continue the public, table this and continue the public hearing.
Is the motion made yet?
No.
No.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing after tonight till next month.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for a vote. Any discussion? Nick?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, just to make sure I'm clear, so we're going to address Aaron's comments, and I think we could probably address a couple of the comments from the public that were here tonight, which we can do next month.
That'll be good.
But is there anything else that I'm not aware of that we need for information for you folks to make a decision next month?
Well, other than Aaron's comments, I think everyone here gave you their concerns. Unless somebody has something to add right now for them.
That's fine, I just want to make sure we're properly prepared.
To me, I would like to see if that swale can, and you mentioned that you should be able to draw some of the water off of Killen Road, or not, the ones that are right in back of you, Fairlawn Farm Project. If the swale is beneficial, it'll benefit everybody.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Bob.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, did you vote last on that vote?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
okay. Consideration of the public hearing has been taken care of. Getting into old business, application A18 12.2, Barnes Road, Roland Industries, release of bond.
Nothing to report.
Okay. All right. Application A18 1.2, 801 North Colony Road. I am the Walrus LLC. Now, you've got a notice of violation. Oh, that's been withdrawn. This request for the bond has been withdrawn. But at the same time, while we're on this subject, we are based on the law department's recommendation, there had to be a violation submitted on this application. This application gets, I won't say complicated, but it gets complicated because it was almost a self-inflicted pain in this thing. So I said to Aaron to talk to their people, and they've got to come up with a solution to this problem. They just can't be talking to us about, well, we did this or we did that or something else happened. They've got to come up with a solution. So that's for next month.
Can I just point out for record keeping that is item 10 under violations. What you just referred to is item 10 lower down on the agenda.
Okay, application A 24 1.4 Long Hill Road, Wallingford Country Club, renovation of 2 creeks. Where did we leave that off, Aaron? Is this the first time we're discussing? Come on up. Name and address for the record.
My name is Justin Nash. I'm actually on the board of directors for the Wallingford Country Club. My address is 125 Old Farms Road, Cheshire, Connecticut.
Okay. Let's see if, is there a environmental report for this, Aaron?
I did go out there with Mr. Nash, but I couldn't type fast enough to get the report done. Tonight, I do have comments on it. The town engineer had comments that went out to you. In the packet, I believe. Let me check the date on that. No, it went out to you tonight. I'm sorry, it's February 29th, so that would have gone out to you in the packet that was delivered Friday night. Do you want me to read that?
Well, what, are we going to act on this tonight? Are we prepared to act on this tonight?
I'd like, what I would like is Mr. Nash to present it, to give you an idea of what's involved. And the end, what has stopped Mr. Nash is or put a roadblock, the town engineer has asked for calculations. And in order for Mr. Nash to produce that, he's got to get an engineering firm. He was having a little trouble finding an engineer who would do the work to produce the calculations. Because the town engineer says, in your project, you're going to streamline these creeks, and that's going to make the water go faster. So she wanted calculations. If it is going to make the water go faster, okay, well, what can we put in there to slow it down a little bit or something? I think that's the thinking.
Correct. So I did receive that report from the town engineer, I believe it was Wednesday. Clearly not a tremendous amount of time to react. The intent of the project is entirely just to dredge and restore the creeks to their existing condition, not to change the topography of the creeks, not to add any additional square footage to the creeks, not so that in theory shouldn't change the velocity of the exit of those creeks. This was intended to be a maintenance project in entirety. I felt that it was important to bring it to your attention because we would be working in a waterway as opposed to business as usual where they avoid.
Talk in the microphone.
I'm sorry, I can't
What are you
hear. I apologize. But yeah, that was the overall intent of the project was purely just to restore the creeks to their original position. There's a number of culverts in the creek that establish the base level and elevation. Those are not changing. The elevation of the creeks are not changing. It's purely just to get the silt that has accumulated over a period of probably 8 or 10 years since they've been last dredged. Then the fabric that's being installed is actually a 1-inch porous native type of fabric that all the natives will eventually grow up through. It just allows for future maintenance to be far easier and really minimize the amount of work that we're doing out there.
So what you're waiting for, though, is engineer calculations to give to the town engineering department.
I did just receive that, unfortunately, I think less than a week ago. What I would request, we have no reservation to providing those calculations, is if you could authorize us to do the work and leave the permit open to accommodate any actions that are needed at that time, at the end, before we close the permit.
I don't know, Aaron. Do we grant a permit subject to town engineer's request?
I have other issues with this that maybe Mr. Nash can talk about. One is you're going to line, I thought some of the creeks were going to get lined with sod.
No, so that was, I did want to correct that from last month's meeting. The sod lining will only go up into the water line. I did present, and I think there's a detail in the package that shows the jute mesh fabric is on the base of the creek, and it goes up the side, and then the sod actually wraps the top down to basically the water line, or the high point of the water line. It's in your detail.
Can you tell the commission why we want jute in the bottom of these creeks? What's the advantage?
Just to establish and firm up the base so that the base doesn't erode further, and establish and solidify that elevation throughout the creek bed.
How is that beneficial to the natural biological condition of the things that live in the soil and the...
So it actually creates a 1-by-1 opening where the natural biologics grow back up through. So it's not a solid...
No, not the ones that grow up through, the ones that live.
Yes, so it's just, it's basically an open mesh that...
Zooplankton, not phytoplankton.
I'm sorry, I'm not very familiar with the...
You are talking about plants growing
Correct.
up through. I'm talking about the things that allow the plants to get the nutrients from the soil.
Correct.
The things that live in the soil, like worms, snails, and
Yeah.
bugs, and things that are part of the natural biology. My concern is you're doing this for a singular purpose, and it has very little to do with the benefits of the botany, the biology that takes place in the creek. The sole purpose is beautification.
Well, so if 90% of the year, this really is a dry swale with very little to no water movement through them. So that creates, when it's dry, a firm base that's just existent, and it's not going to be filled back up with silt. These are not active creeks. Right now it's active because obviously we're in an unprecedented time of flow, but predominantly these creeks are empty. So I wouldn't say that it's a natural, life that's living in these creek beds, and there's no fish, there's nothing.
Yeah, you're describing almost a vernal type of situation in a controlled channel that was probably a wetland meadow that became a lawn and a channel conveying what water was left in there into one area. And at this point, you want to keep the feet clean and keep it looking nice.
That's an accurate statement, yeah.
Okay.
But again, I think the jute mesh that's installed is to help that and not really create a impermeable barrier at the base of the creek. So this would.
I just want to be open and as to the purpose of this,
Yeah.
and not paint it with flowers that aren't real.
Yep, no, again, that's the whole reason I'm here, trying to be, forthright and, transparent with what we're doing and not try to do something that, behind the.
And that's perfectly acceptable, because one of the things that wetland commissions throughout the state recognize is the need for recreational applications. And so I recognize that as part of the whole program for recreational purposes within wetlands. And I would say it mostly works pretty good. The only objections I have to it is to stay away from it with the fertilizers and the herbicides
Yeah.
and pesticides.
Yeah, so these, obviously the creeks in their dry period would not be, maintained with a mower or a hedge trimmer or anything like that, or for that matter, fertilizer. So they are natural. It does create a natural edge that the mowers can go up to and keep clean and stay away from the creeks in entirety.
Okay, Aaron, what's the input? What's your comments? Approve or wait till the calculations from engineering?
Maybe Jim, Commissioner Harleman can tell me. Let's
Speak
say,
into the mic.
my question would be, if it increases the velocity, if this work is going to increase the velocity in the stream, which is the fear of the town engineer, I believe her other part, that was a number one, I think her comment number two is, I think she's going toward outlet protection. I think she's not going to say, well, don't do it. I think she would then say, you got to put in strong outlet protection so that your neighboring property next
Absolutely.
door, they have a swamp, a mature wooded swamp, that they wouldn't be reamed out in effect.
Correct. And so I think, again, like I said previously, we're certainly willing to do whatever is required at the time. And I think to mitigate that during construction until those calculations are done, the final culverts on both of these creeks do have check dams. So we could certainly keep the check dams, to a higher level until that determination is given.
Well,
I don't know. I'm not in favor of this application, but I'm trying to get around it
you're trying to get around what?
I'm a naturalist. I like to see the natural environments and then the natural habitats sustained. They're being diminished,
So,
on a regular basis, they're being diminished. And this is one case, they're in a golf course. We have the sun coming down on them. It's open air and it's people getting exercise and, doing all that's good.
okay, but what are we doing with this application tonight? Are we acting on it, or are we waiting for
I
the
think
town
it's up to
engineer?
you. If you want to approve it, I would not want to approve it anyway. So no matter.
You're not in favor of the whole project then?
But that's my personal opinion. as Commissioner Heilman said, recreation is an important part of our community, of our state.
Okay. All right. I don't like to go against the engineering department. That's, you ask them to review the plans, and they make a recommendation, and then we don't respect the recommendation. How do we fit that in? If we grant them approval, how do we fit in the request from the engineering department?
They would have.
When are you starting this project?
We'd like to start as soon as, well, really this weather subsides a little bit. We have contractors on site doing other work that would be doing this work. But again, if you decide to push it off, you know, we'll accommodate that.
Well, I remember in some of your applications, you want to do it in the winter, or,
We were hoping to do that, yeah.
well, when the ground was frozen, but the ground
Never froze.
Oh, you're
ran
in
out of
a
that
mud
one.
season now until something like April.
Correct. So, you know, now it's the time to do it, again, because the course is not being utilized. So we got to deal with what we got to deal with.
Well, if we do grant them approval with a $1,000 bond, subject to the release of the engineering department? How does that sound?
I'd be very appreciative of that.
Maybe a little higher bond? Would somebody go in and clean it up for $1,000? I don't.
What's that?
I don't think a contractor would go in and fix it for $1,000 if
It
it was.
isn't, the bond isn't for fixing it, it's for getting the documentation for the engineering department.
Whatever that number you want it to be, it's fine.
The engineering department wants calculations.
Yeah.
I don't want to ignore the engineering department.
All right, then put a condition on it that they satisfy the terms of the engineering.
That's what I was going to recommend.
To.
So provide the calculations and execute whatever recommendations fall from the calculations.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Well, if
Aaron, I
Your-
don't know what you're
your
talking about.
5 sitting members are going to vote. It's really what you guys think. I've been here 20 years, and I see this town getting nickeled and dimed with, not money, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about less and less natural areas, fewer natural streams, things getting, civilized, cleaned up, maintained. I go in people's rear yards and I see them maintain right to the water line and fertilize their yards right to the water line.
You sit there as a professional representing the town of Wallingford. If it's your personal views on things, maybe you should be up here at this board, on this side. You're there as our person representing the town, looking for the way to
Okay, if you-
process this.
If you want to approve this, I would say my biggest concern is release of sedimentation. I was out there with Mr. Nash. You know, it is very soggy for about 12 feet on either side of these streams. These streams have no banks, 0 banks. They're like really gentle, flat
Okay.
banks. And so my concern is when they go and you're going to straighten the edges, they're going to make edges and straighten the bottom and then put the jute netting in. I thought it was going to be sod, but the sod's just going on side, so they have to cut 6 inches down or whatever to lay the sod on the side. So a lot of sediment will be released. So it's got to have a really strong erosion control, not only at the far end where it's going to hit the neighbor's property, but they don't want to look at sediment at the different segments. There are about, 8 segments they're doing. So they don't want their golfers to look at piles of sediment either. So it's going to have a strong erosion control. It's got to be implemented.
We agree.
All right, you agree. Did we get a map of this? We never really got a
Yes.
map of this, did we?
Yes, I sent.
You got an
pretty
actual map?
Detailed, broken up pictures. We have in there where we lay the erosion control and the sediment containment. All of the material that's being removed is staying on property. with the intent to reuse it in different locations. I mean, we would love to add more bodies of water if we could.
The erosion control is a little hard to see on the materials, the documents he turned in, but even if it looks pretty good when I analyzed it, it's really the execution.
Absolutely.
It's got to be executed
We would love for you to come out and
carefully.
inspect.
And not during a rain, so you have to do it in a dry forecast.
Without a doubt. It's just background to me. I'm a senior project manager for a pretty major civil construction company, Bond Brothers. So I deal with this, and that's pretty much why the board asked me to help. So I'm very particular with the sediment containment and erosion control. And but I'd love to have you guys come and inspect
Okay,
it.
Aaron, so where are we with this now, Aaron? I mean, they've got a plan to follow. They've got to follow with notifying you of soil erosion controls in effect when this thing gets approved.
Well, that's another, if you're going to go ahead, yes, environmental planner should be notified a week in advance to come out and inspect
That's,
the erosion controls at the commencement of work, yes. That's a standard boilerplate we put on.
so
yes.
are you saying this should have a bond large enough to do the work if their contractor doesn't do it correctly?
I was out there with the contractor who does this. This is what he does. He goes around New England doing this. He seemed very proficient at his job. He was
Okay,
impressive.
So what's the answer?
No, I'm not afraid he's not going to do a good job.
Okay, so is $1,000 bond enough to make sure they get the calculations that were needed?
We'll
I
give
think
more.
the fear of a violation notice would make them do that. I don't know if you actually need a bond.
We aren't going to run from you. We want to, we're trying to establish ourselves as,
Just make the motion with the bond to cover the engineering department's request and the soil and erosion control necessary.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that application A 24-1.4, 195 Long Hill Road, Wallingford Country Club, renovation of 2 creeks, be approved with the two conditions, that there are proper erosion controls are put into place, and there is a $1,000 bond subject to release of the engineering department's terms
Terms and calculations.
and calculations.
I think you forgot
Is there a
the,
second?
the measures to be executed.
Oh, wait, hold on.
I'll
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I would like to hear Ms. Phillips' second condition, please.
What do you want, Aaron? Speak up, please.
I'm asking.
Oh, what?
$1,000 bond, subject to release of engineering department terms and calculations.
Does that express what's going on here?
Not really. To be released when the town engineers
Have been provided the
are
calculations and their terms have been satisfied.
right, to be released when those terms are satisfied, yes. And if you could just add for the erosion control that they call me to inspect it prior to commencement.
If you need a week's notice.
Call for a vote? Nick?
What are we voting on, Jim? I'm
We're
confused.
voting on the motion to approve the application with 2 conditions of approval. One condition is notifying Aaron a week before construction so she can be sure that soil and erosion controls are in place. And 2, we're going to place a $1,000 bond on the project to satisfy the town engineers looking for calculations and be released when the calculations are supplied.
Okay. Aaron,
Released when the calculations are supplied, and whatever she recommends is put into the stream to slow the velocities.
I don't understand why we hired you to be our staff person for items like this, that you should be out there when they start the project and periodically checking to make sure they're doing the job right. Now you got the town engineer involved. Why does she need to be there?
Oh, no, she's not going to be there. No.
You got her looking at calculations and flow rates, right?
she gets referred all my applications. So, she was referred this application, and her comment was it is going to speed up the stream. So what we want to make sure is he gives her the calculations, and if she says, 5 boulders have to go at the property line to slow this water down, that Mr. Nash puts in 5 boulders at the property line, or whatever she comes up with.
Okay. Yes. Yes, Jim.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Mike?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
So if a week from today.
all right.
we'll be
Going on
ready.
to application A24
Send you an
2.1,
email.
155 East Street, Fergie Management Court.
Good evening. For the record, Tom Linden, Linden Landscape Architects from Weathersfield. I am here representing Ferdy Management for their property at 155 East Street. With me, I have Scott Thibodeau, the plant manager. Frank DeRosa, the project manager for Ferdy, could not be here this evening. I'm just going to go straight to the plans. So we're here tonight for a proposal at Ferdy for a new outdoor loading area, or unloading area, actually, for the delivery of materials that they use inside the plant to produce the fertilizer. This is the entire package that you have in front of you, the existing survey of the entire property. This is an overall plan just to orient you. I'm sure you remember it from 2 years ago. The north is to the north. North is up. This is the Ferdy property, the big black line. The building in the center. You come in off of the driveway down from East Street here. Allegheny Ludlam is on this side. Quinnipiac River and the Merritt is over here. The property to the north is owned by AT&T, and the property to the south is the energy plant. Also on this plan is everything in blue, which is in your plan set for blue, is the FEMA lines. So the floodway line is out here for the river. The FEMA AE zones, which corresponds with the AE zone. The AE zone does come in on the west side of the building and comes in the northeast back corner. The area that we're proposing to do work in is in the northeast rear corner of the building, and it is entirely within it's within the AE zone. The outside dashed blue line is the 50-foot uplands review that you have jurisdiction over. So basically the entire project is within either FEMA or uplands review area. A larger scale plan, again, the yellow outline is the area of work. The existing driveway from the parking lot on the east side of the building is along here to the paved area in the back. Currently, their delivery trucks come in on this driveway, wrap around the back of the building, and back into a hopper and elevator tower that's on this northwest corner of the building. This is where they get their material now. So our proposal, and you'll see it better on the next one, so this driveway remains. This pavement in the back remains. We're going to take out a little piece of pavement in the back corner, which you'll see in a minute, and this area of removal is just saw-cut pavement to install new drainage, which you'll see later. The existing pine trees along here will all be taken down. This is where the detention system's going to go, which is here. So the proposal is for them to put in a second unloading area. So similar to this, there's a concrete ramp that the truck backs up onto and dumps its material, and it goes into an elevator tower that goes onto the roof and is dispensed inside the building. They want to do the same thing over on this side, where a truck is going to come in from this direction down the driveway and back into here. The hopper on the ground, similar to what's right in this corner, will be there. There's a conveyor system that brings it up because this elevation is higher than that. The elevator tower is going to go here up onto the roof and distribute the material inside the way they do now with this hopper. So what we're doing is adding pavement and creating a detention basin on this side. The reason we're doing that is that the existing detention basin in that back corner is in this location, and this is where we want to put the new pavement. So what we've done is taken the volume that this detention basin currently receives, and we've put it in this basin. You'll see it better on the grading plan. It goes into this basin, and then the basin is this big because of the additional impervious surface we're putting here. So on grading and drainage, currently, this driveway and the area in the back, that's all pavement now, from the end of the parking lot to where that driveway begins, that's the high point. All of the pavement for the parking lot goes out towards the front of the building, south end. This is the high point and the break point between that. This water currently runs down the driveway. The driveway is sloped towards the building. It's curbed on the east side. It's not curbed on the west side because that water was designed to flow into the detention basin that was here. We're going to leave the driveway the way it is. We're going to add this pavement, and it's going to create a low point where this new structure is going to be, so that this new runoff goes to there. It's piped into this new basin, and this is now our detention basin, sized for the amount that we're paving over on this side, plus the amount we need for this impervious surface. And it's actually designed much larger than it needs to be. This volume plus the volume we need for this pavement is roughly 6,000 cubic feet of volume. No, sorry, it's a little more than 5,200 cubic feet. The basin we're creating is 9,000 cubic feet of volume. It's significantly larger than what we need to detain for impervious surfaces and to replace what was here. And there's a couple reasons for that. The area that we're disturbing is within the FEMA zone. So we currently have an application in with planning and zoning for this project, for the project itself, plus a floodplain application because we're disturbing inside of the floodplain lines. So essentially, this area will be at the grade that it is. We're not filling within the floodplain line, but we're adding impervious surface. So we have to provide some compensation for stormwater volume based on the floodplain regulations. So the areas outside of the floodplain, outside of this line, we're creating more floodplain storage and more floodplain storage. So we needed to make it bigger than the 5,200 square feet that we would need if we were only doing detention. If the FEMA line didn't exist, we'd only need 5,200. So we made it a little bit bigger, and then the decision was made by Ferdy that if we only need to go this far, let's just dig a bigger basin in the amount of land that we have over there. We're building, take out another 500 cubic feet of material. Let's just build the whole thing that size. So the water goes into this unit, piped into the detention basin. Detention basin fills up. Outlet structure is designed to allow the water to drain. We had to put in a manhole to get it around where the new hopper's going to go to an existing catch basin that's behind the building. That pipes over to an existing system that comes out the side of the hill and drains into the woods, essentially, and into the river, the way it's been for years. So it's designed to function to handle a 100-year storm. It'll handle more because it's bigger, but it's designed to handle the 100-year storm for release out into the existing system that drains out to the river. This basin originally was just a standard catch basin. It's going to actually function also as a water quality unit. There's now, rather than a rectangular basin, which is what we show on the detail, it's being revised, which was asked for by the town engineer for details on how this works, because we call it a water quality unit. It's a circular catch basin instead, and it has an insert that goes into it that does the spin thing that a big water quality unit does. So it has the vortex that filters out the sediments and drops it down to, it's actually a 6-foot deep sump because the unit's that big. And it catches oils and stuff like that runs off of pavement. So it's a water quality unit, but it's sized to fit inside a 4-foot diameter manhole, basically. And they're used for small areas like this. If there was a water quality unit for the entire parking lot that's over there, it's one of those big, huge, 10 by 20 foot units. They're designed to function for this particular application for a small area of pavement. So standard details, the catch basin detail for that will change per the engineer's report. We got standard erosion control notes and details for erosion for the project. And then lastly, it's the elevation so you can see what's going on. The truck backs up, goes to the back of the building, elevator goes up, and then goes to the series of hoppers that are in the roof that distribute into each of the different basins. So this would be the back northeast corner. So you're looking at the back of the building, north to south, the conveyor belt up because the grade changes, and that's the new elevator tower. And this is the way, this is the one that functions now. The truck backs up, there's a tower that delivers the material inside the building. So this is similar to the approval that we were granted 2 years ago in 2022 when we came in for this project. The difference is there's no building. The past one had the building addition. It was 140 foot long building along this whole thing. So essentially what happened was, after we got approval from this commission for that project with more impervious surface than this is, Ferdy went back and looked at it as from a financial standpoint and realized that the cost of putting in that relatively small building compared to 160,000 square feet, they were putting in a 6,000 square foot addition. The cost for them to build that building with the foundation they would have had to put in the ground just didn't make financial sense. So the project stopped. We never went to planning and zoning with it last 2 years ago. After we were here, that was the end of it. They didn't build anything. They didn't construct anything. All of the issues from that 2022 approval that were lists of conditions for all of the maintenance stuff that was going on this side of the building, all that stuff was done back in 2022 when we got your approval. So all of the corrections have been made. She has a few more that came in based on her inspection the other day. More placard cards going around and stuff. But it's essentially the same project. It's just less impervious surface. We're building the same size detention basin that we were approved for 10,000 square feet of impervious surface. Now we have a little bit less than 4,000 square feet of impervious surface. So essentially, it's the same project with less impervious surface.
Okay. Questions, Nick?
Is the loading dock still there on the north side?
Yes. Well, yes, it's there. The doors are there, but they're closed and they don't use them.
So it's discontinued?
Yes.
You have flapper valves on the ports going out into the woods? Do you have flapper valves in the pipes so that when the water comes up on the river, it's not backflowing into your parking lot?
That's a very good question. I don't know.
Okay,
The
I would just
existing
be
pipe that's
concerned
out there.
because I know the water gets high back there, and if it backflows into your new creation, you're going to flood your whole project, and green up there is going to be underwater. So I would be concerned about that if there was, if there's, I call them flapper valves.
Yeah.
It's a valve that lets the
A
water.
backflow valve.
Backflow valve.
That's the technical term.
That's all I have.
The pipe's
Debbie?
been there forever. Who knows? We can look into it.
Debbie?
No questions.
Mike?
No questions.
Jeff?
No question.
Jimmy?
No questions.
Ally?
No?
Carol?
Yes, I have a question. I'm a little bit nervous about this because of where it's located and what's going on. And I just want to know what's going on with the trees, because you had mentioned that pine trees are being taken down, and the area was the highest area where the trees were taken down. And then in the engineering report, she also indicates that it said trees were to be removed in the new detention basin area, but it seemed to be contradictory. So what is going on with the trees, and how many are being removed, and which ones?
There's 8 pine trees. So when you come to the back of the employee parking lot, before you go to the driveway that goes around the building, there's 8 pine trees that are in here. They're, I'd say maybe 25 feet tall at most, probably 6 to 8 inch caliper in size. Those are all being removed. The comment in the engineer's report was, we still have a call out that says existing trees to remain for these 2 trees. That was the last version of the plan in 2022 that just didn't get updated here. They're all coming down.
Now, has this been approved with planning and zoning? Because my understanding is those trees were planted between the buffer between Wallingford Steel's property and Fergie's property. It's something that the town planner was real adamant about, having buffers between property lines to hide whatever's going on between the lines.
To hide this beautiful building from that beautiful building.
Yeah.
We did meet with planning early on when they first came to me with this idea. We sat down with planning and zoning and talked to them about it. Aaron joined us at that meeting, and we talked about this. And I haven't received his final written report. He did send me by email a couple of minor comments, and that was not one of them. And it wasn't talked about when we were in the meeting. So we're going to planning and zoning on Monday.
Well, you have 2 pages of Aaron's comments. Aaron, what's your input on this?
We'll be meeting with Tom and his team to iron out all those concerns that I listed in that environmental planner's report.
You're going to meet with who?
Tom Linden
Okay,
is the representative.
so we don't want to act on this tonight then?
Oh, no. No, yes, do not act, please don't act on it tonight.
Okay, so you got these things to go over with her and get straightened out? I mean, you are expanding floodplain area or activity in floodplain?
And that's,
You got some issues on
All of the floodplain stuff is, we have a floodplain application into planning and zoning. And haven't heard anything about it yet, but we've got till Monday.
Well, then, Commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to table this till next month, based on Aaron's recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table the application A24-2.1, 155 East Street, Ferdy Management Corporation, until next month.
Mr. Chairman, can I say one more thing about this? In my environmental plans report, I show you a picture of the condition of their rear storm basin, which was a subject of a violation, I don't know, 3 years ago, and they had Rusty Roger go in and renovate it and put in, I don't
Aaron,
know,
I'm in the middle of a motion. What do you want to say?
10 shrubs. This is flooded. This basin is located in a floodplain. They are proposing a new storm basin to be located in a floodplain. This one still doesn't work. They still can't get it right. That's why we need to really take a hard look at this. If these things are flooded out and they can't keep their shape, something's going wrong here. That they've got to hold their shape, these storm basins.
Okay, there's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Who was the seconder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Call for a vote. Nick?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yes.
Aaron, make sure you get an answer to that for next month.
To which exactly?
Make sure you get an answer to that question you just brought up for next month.
Oh, yes, yes.
Because it sounds like the first one's not working. Why are we going to give them the second one?
That's what my concern is. Yes.
Oh, then do your homework and let us know what's
Yes.
going on.
Application A24 2.2, 100 Barnes Road. This is the request that we have a third party reviewing some of the calculations and some of the design. What's the report on that, Aaron?
The report is, today we got confirmation from the purchasing department that we can go ahead. They require 3 quotes. They were unable to get a third quote, so we just got the 2. So we're going with we have to pick the lowest bidder, quoter. So we're going with OCC George Cotter, and we just, the engineering department is going to write the purchase requisition, and we're good to go.
Good.
And by the way, that George Cotter said he would have it for the next meeting, so, or before the next meeting. So I'm going to sit down with him before the next meeting. First, I'm going to sit down with him and go over the file, but then, obviously, when the report's done, the engineer and I are going to sit down with him, and it'll be presented. And also, the project engineer, Juliana Associates, will present the application itself, the modification application itself.
Okay. No new business. New applications. We have 2. They have A24 3.1. This is for rerouting a portion of the trail and bog bridge installation through an open space area. After discussing with Aaron, I gave him administration approval. 824 3.2, this is the Norford Road Bridge over Muddy River. Bridge construction is, from what I understand, they're waiting for the blacktop plants to open to finish the project, but they have a minor revision to the permit. Instead of a leak off, they're putting a catch basin in and piping it off. Aaron and I discussed it, and we didn't see any negative impact to the wetlands. Probably a tad of improvement of getting it off the road. So this was granted administration approval. Okay, reports and communications. I don't think there's anything major on there.
Are we?
The Freedom of Information training that we attended, the volunteers, was informative, although there was a lot on there that hopefully we'll never get involved in. But for basic, and that's what the one good thing, then I sent Aaron a copy of what's required for minutes under the FOIC Act. hopefully we'll kind of condense our minutes down and make them more palatable. Okay. Number 3, use of pesticides, that's pretty much every year. Proposed budget review, that's Aaron's got that on the 13th. We did add a little increase to the budget to take care of some office expenses. It could be in the way of recording secretaries, fees, notices. If we get involved in having to lawsuits such as Mansion Road, we had to transcript the whole meeting, those kind of numbers. Okay, now, number 7 is an interesting one. This is a letter to Aaron O'Hare, environmental planner, from Dominic Santilli. This is a group that have come together and are petitioning the Wetlands Commission to reverse their decision on the application for 898 Church Street, Yalesville, multifamily apartments. That's certainly a new one. I haven't been involved in such a request before for 30-some years. So that's up into the legal department. So they're handling that till we get a verdict back again. Going into violations, the 1, 2, 3, 4, at least those top 4, I don't think there's been much change. So I think they want to be noted to stay in effect. Number 5, 119 Quigley Road. How's that coming, Aaron?
As I'm waiting for the spring to see what survived. He put in 30 plantings. Let's see how many have made it.
All right. 6 is we're leaving 55 Kondraki Lane in line and release it after the work is done. 7, notice of violation remains for 4 Miller Road. I think we'll be able to set a site investigation without being snowed out in the next week or so. Imagine that one snowstorm in the whole winter and the day we were going.
Yep.
Do you have any specific dates, Aaron?
Yes. To set the site walk, they asked, I reached out to them, not March 13, but other than that, they're good.
What I don't know, does anybody have a date?
We're looking to the following week or the end of the month?
I don't care. If it should, after this Sunday, you're going to be an extra hour with daylight.
The last week I'm gone, and then the 21st next week's no good. Other than that.
You wanted, are you saying you can't be available the 21st?
Yeah, 21st, I'm not here. And I'm away the last week.
I'm not coming up with a calendar in my phone for some reason. Okay, so the 6th.
Your motion or something?
So, not yet. Do we have a date?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We're coming up with a date.
Not yet.
We're looking at the week of the 18th.
Week of the 18th, does that sound all right? You want to make it the beginning or the end? How about the 19th? Okay, March 19th.
At 4:45, is it?
It could be a little bit later, right? 5 o'clock, okay?
5 o'clock?
'Cause you're going to have about an hour and a half worth of daylight anyway, maybe more.
Okay, special meeting, site investigation, 4 Miller.
Okay, so, and you'll send a notice out to that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is, what do we say, March 19th?
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
March 19th, Tuesday. 5 o'clock. Okay, that was number 7. 8 and 9 are running together. I think they're here for a presentation tonight, and let's see how we do with that.
Good evening. My name is Zach Georgian. I'm with Giuliano Associates, 405 Main Street, and project engineer for this. I know you've received many documents from our office addressing the stormwater conditions and what has been done by Mr. Peretta. I know at the last meeting, the focus was on hearing directly from Mr. Peretta himself. So assuming the commission would still like to hear from Mr. Peretta on what has been done, I'd like to give him the opportunity to express in the last month the progress that has been made.
Okay, have you got a presentation, or is it just based on all the documentation you sent in?
If there are any specific questions on the documentation, but essentially going through it real quick, the status is we were directed to deal with the stormwater channel on 929 North Main Street Extension. To that extent, we have removed the trees, removed the sediment. We addressed a situation with a temporary emergency action, which was submitted to yourself, Mr. Chairman, and Aaron O'Hare to solve an issue with the wetlands, which are on 86 spilling onto 929, then being directed onto 970 North Colony Road. So that was corrected with putting a 1 foot, essentially a divot in the channel wall to allow them to spill into the channel instead of onto 970. We have the directive to clean out all the sumps for the catch basins on 970 has been completed. That has been done. My understanding is Mr. Peretta has come to an agreement with the individuals at 970 to settle their interactions with a dollar figure on impacts there. In terms of, and I know that we kind of got the two sites here combined, 86 Barton Road has been contained and actively monitored since just before the previous meeting. There's been no silt escaping the site from that point. David Lord has produced a report with plantings and timelines for how to restore that eastern wetland that was disturbed in the upland review area. We've met all of the directives issued in both the cease and desist and the notice of violation for the two properties at this point. We've submitted the extensive report from our office just addressing and outlining everything that has been provided. In all honesty, at this point, I would hope the commission sees fit to, at least for 86, lift the cease and desist to allow Mr. Peretta to get back to work while issuing a notice of violation about the eastern wetland to allow the commission and Ms. O'Hare to make sure that that's properly restored for 86. And then at 929, we have gone above and beyond the original notice of violation in terms of correcting the swale and the erosion resulting from that clogged swale, and then addressing the channel all along 929 to the benefit of everyone on the adjacent properties.
Commissioners, any questions? Nick?
I've been out there twice, once last weekend, the beginning of the weekend, and I'm out there today. And I just want to compliment on the job that was done on 86. I think you went from a mess to something very professionally installed. And also with 950, I went by slow enough to take a look at that, and it was restored. It's too bad that we had to bark to get this kind of work done, which, you know, I'm sure there's more circumstances than we know because we're sitting up here, but I think you've showed a corrective action on both properties, and I feel comfortable that if the rest of the commission feels so inclined to release the cease and desist and let you continue with 86, I have no objections to that.
Debbie?
No questions.
Mike?
I agree with Mr. Kern. I've been by several times the last few weeks, and it looks really good.
Jeff?
Same with me. You've done a good job.
To me?
I agree with Nick's description 100%.
Ally?
I don't have any comment.
Caroline?
I'm also in agreement with their comments.
Aaron?
There's been a tremendous amount of work done here on the part of both Mr. Peretta of the earthwork and Zachary with, oh gosh, I don't know, 5 reports dated, that came in February 7th and another 5 that came in the last week, I think. And David Lord sent 2 reports in. I would agree that things can move ahead with a but. There's been a lot of work done. I do want to point out the town engineer commented. We should go over that. Maybe Zach, do you have a copy of her comments?
I don't believe I received anything formal from.
Microphone, boys.
Sorry, I don't believe that I've
Okay.
received any comments from Allison on this topic.
All right, we can go over that in a second. I did hand them out tonight, but if I don't know how to finesse this thing of lifting, we'll have to think about it a little bit, how you lift the cease and desist, but then slap on a notice of violation for the other part. The other part being the wetland restoration part. That part, I'm not satisfied with. That's got work to be done. I did, Mr. Lord's report was handed out in your packet, went out in your packet Friday night. I just read it. I didn't have time to call him about it. There's a few things in there I want to tweak, so I don't want that approved, that part of this remediation or lifting of the cease and desist. That's the part I have concerns about. Now, going to the engineer's report on this, because I did give her a summary of what was going on with the violations and the site conditions and everything else. So let's see. If I could just take a second to look at this, and you might have copies. It's dated February 28th on 86 Barnes Road. Says it's my understanding, she acknowledges probably what happened was due to him not properly installing this sediment controls. It's my understanding, I'm reading Allison Kapuscinski's report. It's my understanding that the applicant's engineer have revised the sediment control plan to provide additional protections, which he has, and we have copies of that came in Zach's hand-drawn erosion control, revision erosion control plan came in. That's fine. The applicant is reminded that the submitted plans are a minimum requirement. Site conditions and weather patterns can require above and beyond measures and should be implemented on an as-needed basis. I want to stop right there because I believe Zach has gone out there a few times. How many times, Zach, in the last month?
I mean, in the last month, probably 4 inspections specifically, 4 times. I'm out there at least twice a week just conferring with Mr. Peretta on everything.
So what is your intention moving forward for the next 2 months? As how many site visits? I don't know if you're intending to go out there on a regular basis or I don't know.
Just with the nature of the situation, I would recommend, just from a professional standpoint, doing S&E inspections after any storm, totaling a ½ inch or more. That's pretty standard from the S&E manual until the town is satisfied that the S&E plans are being followed or we reach a point where it's no longer pertinent to continue them.
Okay. And then I'm reading back on this. I would like to make the following recommendations for the Wetland Commission's consideration. Well, she's her first requiring regularly scheduled inspections, which we just talked about. Inspections should provide the following: be signed by a professional engineer, include current conditions of installed measures, compliance with design plans, corrective actions required, any restorations that need to be affected. Okay, be done, she's saying every 2 weeks, with additional inspections the day after 1-inch rainfall, or more frequently if the commission wants. And then the report's submitted to my office.
Well,
and there's more. But
So what's the holdup, Aaron? You just got this today from Allison?
I got this on the 28th. There's no, she has a positive review. I'm reading, her comments are positive. This is good, if you want to lift it. She's supporting that. I'm getting to my only negative, is the wetland restoration, which we can break that off.
Well, I think we can issue a release to the cease and desist. They can go forward with 86 Barnes Road. If they don't do the remediation to the wetlands, it'll be another violation, which I'm sure he doesn't want. He's just spent X amount of dollars to straighten the property out. I don't think he's going to shortchange. I'd be surprised if he's going to shortchange on that area. But does this go along with 950? Is there any reason to hold up 950 from being released of violation?
Oh, no, I was getting to that. I've been on that site
if
several
there's nothing-
times. And yes, the 950 is looking good. I did go out after they cut the trees along the channel as required. I have not been out since, I guess, last week. They cleaned the sediment islands. These are sediment that had fallen into the bottom of the channel in discrete sandbars. That was done last week. I haven't been out to check that, but no, that site's looking good.
Right. If we're gonna release the cease and desist, do we need? He had you started talking about all these conditions. Is that already in the works, or does that have to be part of the cease and desist, or is that part of?
We do need, I know it's late, we do need to articulate the restraints on this project, yes, when we release it. I would like to just finish what the town engineer is suggesting that we do in the release.
How are you going to put this in a motion as cease and desist? Release the cease and desist. Subject to?
Yes.
You know what the subject to without reading the whole page?
Subject to inspections of the erosion control situation every 2 weeks. And the other one is here, she's saying that the environmental planner should be notified before and after the excavation for the infiltration system and the galley installation, so I can visually observe any groundwater. She's putting on me to be out there to look to see what's going on when they dig for the galleys and the infiltration unit. And the other thing is, I asked her to review the new deep test pit information, because they went out and they dug test pits in exactly where the infiltration unit's going. So let's see what she says. She's okay with that. They didn't give percolation rate information, but she was okay with the deep test pit information. Maybe, Zach, you can say why you didn't give percolation rate information.
If there's a question, I can clarify.
Are we ready, Aaron, to release this? Or is it subject to that letter? You've read a lot of different things. I'm not sure how to word this.
We could release
smoothly.
it subject to.
To that letter, the recommendations of that letter?
Subject to this letter, and that the wetland restoration, I'm sorry, his plan, David Lord did a.
We can leave the restoration to a notice of violation if it's not done. Because you're not, unless you're putting a bond on this.
There's so many details, I know it's late, to go over what is right and what is wrong with the wetland restoration plan. So let's break that out in we'll do a separate notice of violation for that.
If that plan doesn't get done.
Well, no, not just if it doesn't get done.
No, this has got to stop. I just soon get rid of the notice of violation until if they don't do what they're supposed to, then it'll be subject to you and David Lord.
Okay, Mr. Lord forgot to talk about the trees that were cut down on the north side. So I guess you can say, and whatever the environmental planner wants as far as what work was done on the north side that shouldn't have been done over the silt fence line, over the limit of clearing line.
We've certainly been here. They've been here enough times that these things should have been ironed out. But I'll entertain a motion to release the cease and desist.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we release the cease and desist order on A23-2.2 and A23-9.1, 86 Barnes Road, subject to the directives made in the letter from the town engineer.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion?
Was Mr. Necchio second?
Call for a vote. Nick?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, we got to deal with number 950, also known as 929. We lift the violation after the work has been done there, so that work's been done? We can lift that violation?
Yes.
Okay? Make a motion to lift that violation.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to lift the notice of violation on 950 North Main Street Extension, also known as 929 North Main Street Extension.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion? Nick?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Mike? Yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Keep those in mind, because we're going to have to make a motion to keep the others in effect.
Okay.
Okay, number 10, notice of violation, IWWCA 18, 1.2, 801 North Colony Road. I am the Walrus LLC. Now, this notice of violation was recommended or requested out of the law department, correct, Aaron?
Yes.
This was a procedure that needed to be followed. So until you have a resolve, I don't think we're going to be able to do much for you tonight.
Well, I actually didn't, I had a medical procedure and George had a conflict. I didn't think I'd be able to come, but I am well enough, at least to make some corrections and clarifications to a few of the grounds in Aaron's letter and also in the attorney's notice.
Well,
actual corrections.
Yeah, but
that were in, and they
you actually have to get a resolve to the issue. And to get a resolve to the issue, you've got to work with Aaron to get to that point.
Yeah, well, you just got a letter, a notice of violations letter with a list of grounds, and several of them are just simply completely factually wrong, like that we didn't replace the plantings that were accidentally cut down. Well, we did, and that was described in detail in the memo on August 29th. Erin misremembered, but in fact, we did replace those. And there are also, that there is one of the grounds is that we didn't replace the trees that were cut down during the bittersweet removal day, when there was all those tangled trees with bittersweet vines over them and a bunch of damaged trees were cut down. I wasn't there, but we would be glad to replace those, but we never received a request from you guys or from Aaron over these whole 6 years to do that. And we didn't do that. I think it would have been a good idea to do that, at least to put in some. And I do want to say that the replacement planting day that we had in May 22, it did include 6 or 7 trees, and they just were planted too low on one side and in really bad soil on the west bank that had the road underlayment instead of proper soil. And they died, and those should also be replaced. So there should be 7 trees. But that's not a matter of a notice of violations. That's something that happens when you're doing a complex restoration plan. Some things thrive and others don't. And the planting list for our replacements did not include a number of species that weren't doing very well. And we have 18 of the cut down plantings actually resprouted and were fine. Well, actually, I think it was 12 resprouted and others were planted up close to the road and they did fine. So I think that it's unfair to give us a notice of violation because we didn't replace the trees that were cut down during that planting day, and there's a lot of, nobody knows exactly how many, and it was George that did it, not me, but, and, you know, his memory is different than Aaron's, but at any rate, I wanted also for you guys to see just how nice it looked last summer, and I put pictures in the back of the memo that was your packet. I hope you looked at them. I mean, I think they're beautiful, and I think that the box elder, I read about it, it actually grows to be 60 to 80 feet tall. It's a maple tree, but it's tolerant of flooding, more so than red maple is. It's a fine tree, but if you prune it somewhat, it gets very wide and and shades out the knotweed. So I think that it should be counted as a valid tree, and there are, I think, 13 of them on the site. And so I don't think it's fair that that's just written off as an early successional tree as a grounds for an NOV. And so I underlined the main, I talked about what I've learned doing Army Corps mitigation, that you're supposed to consider the function of the restored area, not just did you plant XX things, you know, into XX places. And so I discussed that in the memo. And functionally, I think we've done great. And we have the south end of it, close to the Walmart, that has the Solomon seal and the bloodroot and all these native forest wildflowers that survived because that soil wasn't disturbed, and that is a special thing. And I'm trying to make a point that a restoration is not about just installing purchased plants. It's about recognizing native plants of value and then putting extra effort in the weeding, basically, and cutting of the invasives so that they can persist and that community can survive. And so I'm pleased, and at least until last year, they were doing great on that hillside, just approaching on the left, just approaching the Walmart. So if you have any, I think that by the way, our client says that the deal fell through with the purchase of the property, so he's the owner free and clear, Mr. DeBabo, Mark DeBabo, and I think he'd much rather plant trees than get an NOV. I think that having that on the deed hampers his prospects for future sale when he was ready to retire or whatever. But he's a nice guy, and he's willing to do what he's supposed to do. And the Tractor Supply is doing fine. And
Well, I've got to tell you that I think you created this. Your client, not you specifically, but your client created this.
This what?
This whole problem, because he submitted this aggressive weed control plan. Now, whether it was to show off Tractor Supply from Route 5 or not, I don't know, but he's the one who would guarantee a 6-year program, reports every year. This is something George came in. We didn't request it to begin with. This is something your company did, or George did.
Yeah. Well, I think the
So
cutting
let me finish. So now here we are. You haven't been able to satisfy your own plan, and you haven't given us a solution. Let me finish, please. You haven't supplied a solution to the overall permit, the bond, and everything else. Now, if you look at the whole thing and you say, we can't accomplish what we originally set out to do. Now, then it goes to the legal departments involved, because do we want to call the bond? How do we call the bond? What do we do with the bond money? You've got to come up with a solution to solve the problem. And it may be that plant 5 trees. Maybe admit that the project didn't go as well as possible. This is the best we can do. You got to come up with something that satisfies Aaron and the commission.
Yeah. It's like a war when the invasives come in, and it's a difficult process, and it takes a lot more there is basically an assumption that you can do restorations just by installing a bunch of plants, right to start with, and then coming back to follow it. You don't have to baby them as if they're in your own garden and trim them and water them and pull weeds out, but it's not true. If they're really going to do well, you should have relatively low-paid gardeners out there every 2 weeks taking care of them. And that's, I've seen so many mitigation plans over the years. Grandiose, beautiful, nice plans, and nobody's taking care of them after they're put in and they don't live.
Well, that's something you gotta
Well,
work out.
we were doing that, and it was working. So that's, but that's not what general practice is. So can we? George wants to come on in April, and
Only if he's got a solution.
I want to put the planting plan and the solution together before April.
Absolutely.
And I want to go over it with Erin before April.
Very good.
And I think there also needs to be money in the budget for a gardening assistant for me.
That's your department.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Come back with a solution.
So, and you know that he took his request for, he was mixed up, everybody was mixed up. The bond, he shouldn't have asked for his bond back until next December. So we withdrew that. Okay, thank you.
Very good.
See you in April.
Okay.
And hopefully we can act on it in April.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, there's one other item that's not on the agenda that Aaron pointed out to me, that this is usually the month that we
On the agenda.
pick officers.
It's on the agenda.
Oh, it's down there. I'm already on the other page. Oh, there it is. I gotta go backwards. I missed that one.
Breezed over it.
Okay, breezed over. I guess
Do you want to confirm the violations first?
let's confirm that. That's right. So you're going to confirm the list of violation minus 8 and 9.
Right. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we reaffirm the notice of violations number 1, 4, 5, 7, and 10 on our agenda, and the cease and correct orders number 2, 3, and 6.
Second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Nick?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yes. Now, fortunately, we have all members attending tonight, so we can act on elections. Is there anybody that wants to run for office?
Mr. Hellman?
Volunteer.
So if not, the secretary can cast one ballot for the existing slate of officers?
Secretary casts one ballot to leave things the way they are.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think we did pretty well getting through the issues tonight.